And recently here on the programme, we've been focusing on the issue of knife crime, how it causes untold misery, not just for the families involved, but right across communities. And we've been asking what is being done to tackle it.
And in our reports, we've spoken with the mother of Mikey Roynan, who was just 16 when he was stabbed to death in Somerset last year.
Well, on Friday, the boys who killed Mikey at a house party were sentenced. We're going to speak to his mum in just a moment. But first, our correspondent Dan Johnson has been following the case.
10th of June last summer, and teenagers are heading to a birthday party in Bath that's been advertised on Snapchat. This is Mikey travelling from the edge of Bristol with some friends. He was about to come across this group of teenagers from Wiltshire heading to the same party.
This is the ambulance service. Is the patient breathing?
They've just been stabbed at a house party, please.
There was a violent confrontation and Mikey was stabbed in the neck. It was Shane Cunningham who stabbed Mikey, he claimed, in self-defence, but he was convicted of murder. Cartel Bushnell and Leo Knight were given 9 years for manslaughter for encouraging and supporting the attack.
Was it you that stabbed him in the neck?
Shane Cunningham didn't give any answers in custody or in court, so we may never know what sparked the confrontation. The judge passed a life sentence and said he must serve at least 16 years.
Bristol and its surrounding areas are in the middle of a plague of knife crime. The plague has continued since this trial finished. The lives of young boys who carry knives continue to be taken at the hands of other boys who carry knives.
This family's campaigning now to highlight knife crime and how many children are armed and prepared to take lives.
Dan Johnson reporting there, and Dan joins us now on the sofa along with Mikey's mum, Hayley Ryall. Good morning to you. Thanks for coming in. And Hayley, will take this at your pace because I know it's still raw after the hearing just on Friday, wasn't it? You were in court. How are you and the family doing?
OK. I suppose it's been a bit of a whirlwind, really. I haven't had time to process it properly yet. But, yeah, we're OK.
Because it's so raw, what you've all been through. It was June last year that you lost Mikey. To tell us about that son of yours.
He was fun, fearless. He was always excited. He woke up in the mornings, like, really excited. I used to say, what are you excited about? Nothing, everything. So, yeah, just a happy boy, had a lovely, lovely smile, my friend.
One of those kids who just loved life, loved getting up in the morning.
Yeah.
And I suppose no parent expects themselves to be at the centre of something like this, but the more you scratch the surface, the more you realise how much this is happening, how much it's out there. Has that been a shock to you? The fact that so many young people are out there carrying weapons?
Yeah, a lot more than what I ever thought. I was aware of it, but not how much. It's scary. It's really, really scary for people to be bringing up teenage boys, especially, I think. Yeah, it is a lot more than what I ever thought.
And they were just at a party, a house party?
Yeah.
The one that we've all been to house parties as kids.
Yeah. Why would you take a weapon to a house party? It's crazy, isn't it?
And the judge made the decision to waive the anonymity of the perpetrators, and seeing their faces, I mean, they look so young. It must be so hard for you to see them and feel those conflicting emotions looking at them.
Yeah, I was worried about that when we first went into court because I knew I was going to see them. So I was really worried about that, but I don't feel anything for them. And I'm really glad that the judge did that. That really meant the world to me, even more so than the sentencing, because I feel like Mikey had been all over the press, you know, my whole world has been put everywhere, but actually now to have their names put out there, that meant a lot.
Why does that matter so much? Why is it important for their images to be shown, their stories to be told?
Because Mikey's the victim and his was everywhere, and I feel like, you know, he's not here to defend himself, whereas they are. They're still here, so why should it just be Mikey put everywhere? That should happen. I really feel that should happen, because that gave me a bit of comfort, I suppose. It's not just all on Mikey, the focus now.
And Dan, it's unusual, isn't it, for the judge to make a decision like that? And do you think part of the rationale behind it is bringing this story to prominence, to the fore, to make parents think, look, this is what can happen, not just as a victim, but your child could be the one carrying the knife and ultimately ending up in prison?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of the message. The judge was very strong in his sentencing remarks about the plague of knife crime that he said has been affecting Bristol and the area around it. He talked about how many young boys have died at the hands of other young boys carrying a knife. So I think there is a strong message in there that everybody needs to really wake up and take this seriously. It's something the authorities are battling. It's something that more and more families are dealing with. And what we got through following this case closer than we would otherwise be able to is just how widespread and how deep the impacts of something like this are, not just on Hayley, her family, but on so many other people who've been touched by this. People who never knew Mikey but tried to save his life. People who had to respond to this. The community in that area who never had anything like this happen to them before. It's blighted their lives, their area. They feel tainted by this and that they still live with the impacts today. So there are so many ways in which it has a rippling effect so far down the line.
All those children who've witnessed something that traumatic. And the list we've got from Avon and Somerset, Mason Rist, Max Dixon, Darian Williams, Eddie King. This is what's shocking, that there's so many of them.
Yeah, it's just so sad. Something needs to change. It has to. It can't keep happening.
What change would you like to see then, Hayley?
The government to help the police, because I think the police haven't got enough power. You know, I'm a mum. I don't know about laws and legislations, but I do know that they're really trying to get... the police really want a legislation changed, which is the Serious Violence Reduction Order. So that's to be put onto an individual so that the stop and search can be put onto individuals that have carried weapons in the past. This is trialling at the moment, but it's a couple of years for it to trial. There's 4 police departments trialling it, and they have seen a reduction in knife crime from it. Why is it taking so long?
I guess they do the trial, then they do the review, then they change the policy, and it's a long process.
It was 2 years ago this started, and is only just starting to be trialled now. You know, the government needs to help the police to put this order in place quicker. The kids are killing kids. They need help.
And the government have said, Dan, that they are acting. We have some of the toughest knife crime laws in the world. Hospital admissions for young people are down by a quarter since 2019, but they recognise something needs to be done. Is it about the pace of change?
It's got to be. Yeah, look, the police are really battling this. I've spent time with officers in Avon and Somerset trying to get back on the front foot with knife crime. They've got a particular spike at the moment in that area, but this is no doubt a national issue that's affecting teenagers up and down the country. And the police really are crying out for help with this. They will tell you very openly they cannot police their way out of this. They cannot stop and search their way out of this. It's got to be about other agencies. It's got to be about families taking responsibility here as well, all working together to try to solve this.
So
but
they
it is
get
really
the scale
tough.
of the problem, but they're kind of saying, what can we do to...
They see the results.
At prevention point.
Yeah, exactly. They are really good at investigating the murders, sadly. I mean, the amount of effort that's had to go into solving this case and bringing it through court is really impressive. Where the police are struggling is with the prevention, trying to work out who is carrying these knives, why, how do you find them, how do you stop them? It's a real challenge.
And what would you say to mums then watching and dads?
Check the kids, check them, because you just don't know. And I feel like children are carrying weapons, these big weapons, because they're frightened. So they feel that everybody's carrying a weapon, so then they feel that they have to. So, you know, be open with them. Don't think this ain't going to happen to you, because the reality is I thought it wasn't going to happen to me, ever. You know, I never, ever thought I'd lose them. So, yeah, just be aware.
There was some suggestion during the case, wasn't there, that Mikey may or may not have been carrying a weapon himself that night. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there was a suggestion. You know, Mark Newbury, the investigating the detective, he said in his statement the other day there was no proof. They couldn't find a weapon that Mikey might have had. So there was a 60% chance a witness said that he's seen somebody with a weapon with a balaclava. I don't know how true that is. You know, what the judge did say is if you're carrying a weapon, you're more likely to get killed or seriously injured. So that's something that does need to go out to kids.
I suppose the point is that it won't just have been him, if indeed he was. It's not just these lads, it's so many of them. And Dan, you've been reporting on crime for a very long time. Have you been shocked at how widespread this is?
Yeah, I think so, because it is a serious problem in that area at this moment, and there are so many teenage lives that have been affected by it, and then so many bereaved people. I think the things that shocked me were the depth of the impact this is having on some of the people in the emergency services who have to respond to this. I spoke to the police officer who was first on scene, who's actually really traumatised by what he saw that night. He's had to have time off work. There are others, people in that community who are still dealing with the trauma, having counselling. So you get the sense of just how widespread these ripples are, but then also what a challenge it is. There are the unanswered questions about exactly what sparked this incident, which is something
never know.
Hayley and her family are going to have to deal with, probably never going to have the answers to. But then there's the bigger question of how do we get to the bottom of what is going wrong here? Why so many young boys in particular are doing this, putting themselves at risk and prepared to carry something so dangerous, so awful, and then prepared to use it. Maybe not meaning to, but finding themselves suddenly in that situation where things get out of hand, it escalates, and then something so tragic happens.
And there you are, still trying to come to terms with what happened last year, losing Mikey. And you see the headlines on the news almost every day about somewhere in the country another fatal attack. When you hear those reports of another family,
I just feel sick. Yeah, really sick. I just think not again. Like, when is it going to stop? It's awful, and it's a lot more than what we know. You know, we were looking on a Facebook page, for example, last night, and they put on every crime, knife crime, in all over the UK, and I think in an hour there were like 4 different stories on there in the UK. It's
happening under our noses.
How determined are you to use your voice that you've now got?
Really determined, yeah. We set up Mikey's World charity, and we just got charity status, and that means the world to me because it's keeping Mikey's name alive. But also, I don't want families to go through this. I don't want other families to go through this, and somebody's got to speak up. So that's why I've done all of this.
Hayley, thank you so much for coming in.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
talking to us. Dan, thank you as ever. For more information, the background, the ripple effects that Dan was talking about in Mikey's case, Dan's made a documentary. It's called The House Party Murder. It's on BBC iPlayer right now.